I'm sitting in a courtroom right now, watching my son's lawyer turn white as a sheet, and all I can think is, how did we get here? How does a mother end up in this position, signing away everything she owns to the child she raised, fed, loved for 43 years? My hands are shaking as I hold this pen, but not from fear, from rage, from vindication. Because what nobody in this room knows yet, except me and the man sitting 3 rows behind my son, is that I'm about to pull off the most satisfying legal maneuver of my entire life. Before I tell you how this all ends, I need you to do something for me. Leave a comment below and tell me where you're listening from. Are you in your car? At home? Walking your dog? Because what I'm about to share with you is going to make you question everything you thought you knew about family, trust, and the lengths some people will go for money. And I want to know that somewhere out there, someone is hearing my story and maybe, just maybe, recognizing the warning signs I missed for far too long. My name is Margaret Patricia Whitmore. I'm 62 years old, and up until 18 months ago, I lived what most people would call a blessed life in Scottsdale, Arizona. My late husband Richard and I built a commercial real estate empire over 35 years of marriage. We started with one small office building in Tempe back in 1988 and grew it into a portfolio worth just over $47 million. Richard passed away 4 years ago from a sudden heart attack, and I inherited everything. The properties, the investments, the house in Paradise Valley, the vacation home in Sedona, the cars, the art collection, all of it. We had one son. Just one. Daniel Richard Whitmore. Danny, we called him. Our miracle baby, born when I was 19 and Richard was 22, back when we had nothing but dreams and determination. I used to joke that Danny came into the world holding a briefcase because even as a little boy, he was fascinated by business. He'd sit in Richard's office, playing with calculators, pretending to make deals on a toy phone. We were so proud of him. Danny went to Arizona State University, got his MBA from Thunderbird, married a woman named Veronica, who seemed pleasant enough at their wedding. They gave us 2 grandchildren, Tyler and Madison, who I adored beyond measure. After Richard died, Danny stepped up. He hugged me at the funeral and whispered, "I'm here for you, Mom, whatever you need. We're going to get through this together." And I believed him. God help me. I believed every word. For the first year after Richard's death, everything seemed fine. Danny would come by the house every Sunday for dinner. We'd talk about the business, about the kids, about his plans for the future. He worked in pharmaceutical sales and was doing well. Or so he said. Veronica was pleasant during visits, always complimenting my cooking, asking about my health. The grandkids would hug me and tell me they loved me. It felt like family. It felt safe. The first weird thing happened about 18 months ago, during one of those Sunday dinners. Danny brought up the idea of me signing a power of attorney, just in case something happened. He made it sound so reasonable. "Mom, you're getting older. What if you fall and hit your head? What if you have a stroke like Grandma Helen did? Someone needs to be able to handle your affairs. It's just responsible planning." I remember feeling a little twinge of something, discomfort maybe, but I pushed it down. This was my son, the boy I'd rocked to sleep 1,000 nights, the man who cried at his father's funeral. Why would I doubt him? Still, something made me say, "Let me think about it, honey. That's a big step." His face changed for just a second. A flash of something cold crossed his eyes, but then he smiled and said, "Of course, Mom. No pressure. Just want to make sure you're protected." After that dinner, the visits changed. Danny started coming by more often, but the conversations shifted. He'd ask detailed questions about the properties, about the bank accounts, about the investment portfolio. "Just trying to understand Dad's legacy," he'd say. "I want to honor what he built." He'd bring up my age constantly. "You're not getting any younger, Mom. Have you thought about what happens to all this when you're gone? Estate taxes are brutal. We should really get you into a trust situation." Veronica started making comments too, little digs that felt innocent on the surface but left me feeling small. "Margaret, are you sure you should be driving at night? Your reflexes aren't what they used to be." Or, "Maybe you should consider a smaller house. This place is so big for just one person. What if you fell on those stairs and nobody found you for days?" I started to feel watched, studied, like I was a problem that needed solving rather than a mother who deserved love. Then came the calls. 3 months after that first power of attorney conversation, I got a call from my primary bank, Wells Fargo, asking me to verify a request to add Daniel Whitmore as a joint account holder on my main checking account. I told them absolutely not, there must be some mistake. The representative seemed confused and said they'd received the request in writing with what appeared to be my signature. My blood went cold. I drove straight to the bank that afternoon and demanded to see the document. There it was, a form with my name, my account number, and a signature that looked eerily like mine, but wasn't. Someone had forged my signature. Someone who had access to documents with my real signature. Someone who knew my account numbers. I filed a fraud report immediately, but I didn't tell Danny. Something told me to keep quiet, to watch and wait. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the times Danny had been alone in my house, in my office, near my filing cabinets. About the time he'd asked to borrow my checkbook because he'd forgotten his wallet at a restaurant. About Veronica offering to help me organize my paperwork after Richard died. I decided to do something I never thought I'd have to do. I installed security cameras in my house. Small, discreet ones in the living room, kitchen, hallway, and my office. I didn't tell anyone. I also opened a new bank account at a different institution and started moving money quietly, keeping the old accounts active but minimal. For 3 weeks, nothing unusual happened. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, Danny showed up unannounced. He said he was in the neighborhood and wanted to check on me. I was out getting my hair done, and he let himself in with the key I'd given him years ago for emergencies. I watched the footage later that night from my laptop, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might actually have that stroke he kept worrying about. He went straight to my office, straight to my filing cabinet. He pulled out files, photographed documents with his phone, took pictures of bank statements, investment portfolios, property deeds, insurance policies. He was methodical, organized, quick. This wasn't curiosity. This was reconnaissance. This was planning. I watched my son, my only child, violate my privacy and my trust, and I felt something inside me break and harden at the same time. But I still didn't confront him. I needed to know more. I needed to understand the full scope of whatever he was planning. The answer came 2 weeks later in the most unexpected way. I was at Whole Foods, shopping for groceries, when a woman approached me in the produce section. She was around 40, professional looking, and she seemed nervous. "Mrs. Whitmore?" she asked quietly. "Margaret Whitmore?" I confirmed I was, and she glanced around before leaning in close. "My name is Sandra Kozlowski. I'm a paralegal at Hutchins & Associates downtown. I need to talk to you about your son, but not here. Can you meet me for coffee somewhere private?" Every instinct screamed danger, but something about her fear felt genuine. We met the next day at a small cafe in Cave Creek, far from my usual spots. Sandra ordered a coffee she didn't drink and told me a story that made my stomach turn. She worked for a law firm that specialized in estate planning and elder law. 3 months ago, Daniel Whitmore had come in for a consultation. He wanted to know about conservatorships. Specifically, he wanted to know how to have someone declared mentally incompetent so a family member could take over their financial affairs. He'd brought medical records, my medical records, which he must have obtained somehow, and tried to make a case that I was showing signs of dementia. The lawyer he'd met with, a man named Gordon Hutchins, had apparently been uncomfortable with the consultation. Danny had been too eager, too focused on the money. He'd used phrases like sitting on a fortune doing nothing with it, and wasting assets that should be growing. When Gordon asked about my actual mental state, Danny had painted a picture of a confused, forgetful woman who couldn't manage her own affairs. But here's the thing. Gordon Hutchins was ethical, dangerously ethical, from Danny's perspective. He'd told Danny he'd need to see independent medical evaluations, court approval, evidence of actual incompetence. He'd made it clear this wasn't a quick or easy process. Danny had apparently gotten angry, said he'd find a lawyer who understood family loyalty, and left. Sandra had been in the room taking notes. She'd gone home that night and told her husband about it. And he'd said, "You have to warn that woman." Sandra had struggled with attorney-client privilege, with professional ethics, but finally decided some things were more important than a job. She'd tracked me down to warn me. I sat in that cafe, listening to this stranger tell me that my son had been consulting lawyers about declaring me mentally incompetent so he could steal my life's work. And I felt like I was floating outside my own body. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be my Danny. But I thought about the forged signature, the photographed documents, the comments about my age and my health, and I knew it was absolutely real. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked Sandra, my voice barely above a whisper. "Because I have a mother too," she said simply. "And if someone was doing this to her, I'd want her to know. I'd want her to fight back." I thanked Sandra and left that cafe with a new purpose burning in my chest. I wasn't going to be a victim. I was going to be a strategist. My husband had taught me everything he knew about business, about negotiation, about reading people and situations. It was time to use those skills to protect myself from my own child. First, I went to my doctor and got a full cognitive evaluation. I scored perfectly. I had the results notarized and filed with my attorney. Then I hired a private investigator named Marcus Chen, a former FBI agent who specialized in financial crimes. I gave Marcus everything: permission to access my accounts, to follow Danny, to investigate his finances. I wanted to know exactly what I was dealing with. What Marcus found was devastating. Danny was broke, completely, catastrophically broke. The pharmaceutical job had ended 2 years ago, after he was caught falsifying sales reports. He'd been living off credit cards and loans, borrowing against a future inheritance he assumed was coming. He owed over $300,000 to various creditors. His house was in pre-foreclosure. Veronica had no idea how bad things were. He'd been hiding it from her too. But here's the worst part. Danny had taken out a $2 million life insurance policy on me 6 months ago. I was the insured, but he was the beneficiary. He'd forged my signature on the application. Using a medical exam he'd somehow arranged with a corrupt doctor who owed him money. Marcus showed me the policy, and I had to run to the bathroom to throw up. My son had insured my life for $2 million without my knowledge. Combined with everything else, the conservatorship consultation, the forged bank documents, the constant comments about my health and my stares and my age, a terrifying picture emerged. Danny wasn't just planning to steal my money. He was planning to make sure I wasn't around to object. The comments about falling downstairs took on a sinister new meaning. The suggestions that I should take calming medication for my anxiety about Richard's death suddenly seemed like attempts to get me on drugs that could be increased to dangerous levels. The trip to Sedona he'd been planning, just the two of us, Mom, to reconnect, now felt like an opportunity to stage an accident in a remote location. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to call Danny and demand to know when my baby boy had turned into this monster. But I didn't do any of those things. Instead, I called my attorney, a brilliant woman named Patricia Morales, who'd been handling my legal affairs for 15 years, and I told her everything. Patricia didn't waste time with shock or sympathy. She went straight into strategy mode. "Margaret, here's what we're going to do. We're going to let him think he's winning. We're going to give him exactly enough rope to hang himself, and we're going to do it in a way that's completely legal and completely devastating. Over the next 2 weeks, we built a case file that would have made the FBI proud. Marcus documented Danny's fraudulent insurance policy, his forged signatures, his conservatorship consultation. We gathered the security camera footage of him going through my files. We obtained his financial records showing his debts and his desperation. We collected every text message where he'd suggested I was declining mentally, every voicemail where he'd expressed concern about my ability to manage my affairs. Patricia also did something brilliant. She contacted the insurance company about the fraudulent policy and instead of just canceling it, convinced them to keep it active as part of a law enforcement sting. They agreed, seeing it as a slam-dunk fraud case. Then we waited for Danny to make his move. It didn't take long. 3 weeks after my meeting with Sandra, Danny showed up at my house with Veronica and a man he introduced as a family friend who happens to be a lawyer. The man's name was Robert Kasner, and he had the look of someone who specialized in the shadier side of legal practice. They sat me down in my own living room, my beautiful living room with the view of Camelback Mountain, and Danny took my hand with what I'm sure he thought was convincing tenderness. "Mom, we need to talk about your future. Veronica and I are worried about you. We think it's time to make some changes." That's when Kasner opened his briefcase and pulled out documents. So many documents. A power of attorney that would give Danny complete control of my finances. A deed transfer for the Paradise Valley house. A restructuring plan for the real estate portfolio that would put Danny in charge as managing partner. A revision of my will that left everything to Danny outright, bypassing the trust structure Richard and I had carefully created. "We just need you to sign these, Margaret," Kasner said smoothly. "It's all very standard, just protecting your assets and making sure the family is taken care of when the time comes." I looked at Danny, and for just a moment, I saw my little boy. The kid who used to bring me dandelions and call them flowers. The teenager who'd cried in my arms when his first girlfriend broke his heart. The man who'd stood beside me at his father's grave. And then I saw what he'd become. A desperate, dangerous stranger who'd turned his own mother into a mark. "And if I don't sign?" I asked quietly. Danny's face changed. The mask of concern slipped, and I saw calculation underneath. "Mom, don't make this difficult. We're trying to help you. If you're not mentally competent to make these decisions voluntarily, we'll have to pursue other options, legal options, for your own protection, of course." There it was, the threat. Sign over everything willingly, or he'd have me declared incompetent and take it anyway. I thought about that insurance policy, about those stairs, about how easy it would be for a confused old woman on too much medication to have a tragic accident. I took a deep breath and said the words Patricia and I had rehearsed. "I need to think about this. Can I have 24 hours? Danny looked at Kasner, who frowned. "Mrs. Whitmore, these documents have been prepared at considerable expense. We really need 24 hours. I repeated firmly, "or I sign nothing at all." They left, frustrated but trying to hide it. The moment the door closed, I called Patricia. "They made their play," I told her. "Let's finish this." What happened next moved fast. Patricia filed an emergency petition with the Maricopa County Superior Court, laying out everything we'd discovered. The forgery, the fraudulent insurance policy, the coercion, the threats. She requested immediate restraining orders and a full investigation. She also contacted the Arizona Attorney General's office and the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. The next morning, when Danny called to pressure me for a decision, I told him something that still gives me satisfaction to remember. "You're right, honey. I've been thinking about it all night. And you're absolutely right. I'm too old to manage all this. Let's move forward. Let's do it properly, with both our lawyers present in court, so everything is legal and binding." I could hear the triumph in his voice. "That's wonderful, Mom. I'm so glad you're being reasonable about this. I'll have Kasner set it up." What Danny didn't know was that the court proceeding he thought would be a simple formalization of his takeover was actually going to be an evidentiary hearing for Patricia's emergency petition. He'd received notice of the real nature of the hearing only hours beforehand, not enough time to run or properly prepare. The hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later, giving law enforcement time to complete their investigation. During those 2 weeks, I had to pretend everything was normal. Danny came to dinner. We talked about the transfer of assets. He brought Tyler and Madison to see me, using my own grandchildren as props in his con. Every smile he gave me felt like poison. Finally, the day came. September 15th, a Thursday morning, at the Maricopa County Superior Court building in downtown Phoenix. Danny arrived with Kasner and Veronica, all of them dressed professionally, confident they were about to finalize the biggest score of their lives. I was already seated with Patricia, and Danny gave me an encouraging smile as he took his seat. Then the bailiff announced Judge Catherine Winters, and the hearing began. Kasner stood up, ready to present his documents, but Judge Winters cut him off immediately. "Mr. Kasner, this is not the proceeding you're expecting. This is an evidentiary hearing regarding allegations of elder abuse, fraud, forgery, and attempted financial exploitation brought by Mrs. Margaret Whitmore against her son, Daniel Richard Whitmore." I watched Danny's face drain of color. Kasner started sputtering objections, demanding continuances, claiming he'd had no notice. Judge Winters shut him down. "Your client was served proper notice 72 hours ago, counsel. If you chose not to read it or prepare, that's not this court's problem. Sit down." Patricia stood up and began presenting our case. She entered the security camera footage into evidence, showing Danny rifling through my files. She presented the forged bank signature, the fraudulent insurance policy, the conservatorship consultation notes that Sandra had provided in a sealed deposition. She called Marcus Chen, who testified about Danny's debts, his desperation, his pattern of deception. Then came the real bombshell. Patricia called Special Agent Rodriguez from the FBI, who testified that their investigation had uncovered not just the insurance fraud, but evidence that Danny had been researching my medications, looking into how to obtain prescription sedatives, and searching online for phrases like elderly falls fatal and undetectable poisons. Veronica started crying in the gallery, and I realized she genuinely hadn't known the full extent of Danny's plans. Tyler and Madison weren't in court, thank God. They didn't need to see their father destroyed. Danny sat frozen, his lawyer whispering frantically to him. Kasner tried to object, to fight, to discredit the evidence, but it was airtight. We'd built a perfect case. Then Patricia did the thing we'd planned, the move that still makes me smile with dark satisfaction. She presented Danny's own documents, the power of attorney, the deed transfers, the will changes, and said, "Your Honor, Mrs. Whitmore is prepared to sign every single one of these documents right now, in this courtroom, giving her son everything he's demanded." The courtroom went silent. Judge Winters looked confused, Kasner looked suspicious. Danny looked hopeful for just a second. And then Patricia continued, "However, she will only sign them after Mr. Daniel Whitmore signs a full confession to all charges, acknowledging that he coerced these documents through fraud, forgery, and threats, with the intent to financially exploit his elderly mother. Once he signs that confession, which will be immediately forwarded to the Attorney General's Office for Prosecution, Mrs. Whitmore will happily give him everything." The trap snapped shut with beautiful precision. If Danny wanted the money badly enough to commit fraud and possibly plan my death, surely he'd be willing to sign a simple confession to get it. But of course, signing that confession meant prison. Refusing to sign proved that he knew his actions were criminal. Kasner turned pale. Actually pale. I could see the moment he realized his client had dragged him into a criminal conspiracy, that his own law license was potentially at risk for preparing those coercive documents. Judge Winters looked at Danny with something like contempt. "Mr. Whitmore, I'm going to ask you directly. Did you take out a life insurance policy on your mother without her knowledge or consent?" Danny opened his mouth, closed it, looked at his lawyer. Kasner whispered, "Don't answer that. Did you forge your mother's signature on bank documents?" Silence. Did you consult with an attorney about having your mother declared mentally incompetent despite having no medical evidence of incompetence? More silence. Judge Winters didn't need answers. The evidence spoke for itself. She ruled immediately, granting every protection Patricia had requested. Restraining orders prohibiting Danny from contacting me or coming within 500 feet of my property. An emergency freeze on any attempt to access my accounts or assets. Orders directing the insurance company to cancel the fraudulent policy and cooperate with law enforcement. And a referral to the Attorney General for criminal prosecution. Mr. Whitmore, Judge Winters said, her voice cold with disgust, I've been on the bench for 22 years and I've seen many things. But a son attempting to defraud and quite possibly endanger his own mother for financial gain ranks among the most despicable. You should be ashamed of yourself. This hearing is adjourned. Danny was arrested right there in the courtroom by officers who'd been waiting in the hallway. Fraud, forgery, insurance fraud, attempted financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. Kasner fled the courthouse so fast, I'm surprised he didn't leave skid marks. Veronica approached me, sobbing, apologizing, saying she'd had no idea, begging me to believe her. I did believe her, actually. Veronica had been a victim too, just a different kind. I told her I didn't blame her and suggested she get a good divorce attorney. She filed papers a week later. The legal proceedings took 8 months. Danny was offered a plea deal. Plead guilty to the fraud and forgery charges, accept a suspended sentence with 5 years probation and restitution, or go to trial and potentially face 15 years in prison. His new lawyer, a competent one this time, provided by Veronica's family, advised him to take the deal. In the end, Danny pleaded guilty. He stood in a courtroom and admitted what he'd done. He apologized, though the words sounded hollow and rehearsed. The judge accepted the plea, but added a condition: mandatory psychological counseling and a permanent restraining order prohibiting him from inheriting anything from me, even if I wanted to leave him something in my will. My son, my only child, became legally barred from benefiting from my estate. The court essentially wrote him out of my life with judicial authority. The insurance company not only canceled the fraudulent policy, but sued Danny for the cost of their investigation. Kasner was disbarred after a separate ethics investigation revealed he'd helped other clients attempt similar schemes. Sandra Kozlowski got a commendation from the State Bar for her ethical courage, and I hired her as my personal paralegal at triple her previous salary. As for me, I spent the months after the trial in therapy, trying to process how the child I'd loved could have become so twisted by greed and desperation. My therapist, Dr. Rachel Hoffman, helped me understand that sometimes people break under pressure in ways we can't predict or prevent. That Danny's choices weren't my fault. That I'd been a good mother. That loving someone doesn't mean accepting abuse from them. Tyler and Madison were told an age-appropriate version of what happened. That their father had made serious mistakes involving Grandma's money and had to face consequences. Veronica got full custody, and I see my grandchildren regularly now. They're good kids, and I'm determined to help them grow up understanding that integrity matters more than money. I've also become something of an advocate for elder abuse awareness. I speak at community centers, senior groups, legal conferences. I tell my story over and over, and every time I do, someone comes up to me afterward and says, "That almost happened to me," or "That's happening to my mother right now." I connect them with resources, with attorneys like Patricia, with investigators like Marcus. I turn my nightmare into prevention for others. As for my fortune, it's still mine. All $47 million of it, give or take the market fluctuations. I've restructured my estate plan with Patricia's help. A portion will go to Tyler and Madison in trust funds they can't access until they're 30, managed by independent trustees. A significant amount will go to charities fighting elder abuse and supporting fraud victims. And the rest will fund a foundation in Richard's name to help young entrepreneurs build businesses the honest way. Danny gets nothing. Not a house, not a car, not a dime. And that's not revenge. That's consequence. I still think about him sometimes, usually late at night when the house is quiet. I think about the little boy who used to climb into my lap and ask me to read him stories. I think about the teenager who worked summer jobs to save money for college. I think about the man who cried at his father's funeral, and I wonder where I lost him, or if maybe he was always capable of this and I just didn't want to see it. But mostly I think about that moment in the courtroom when his lawyer turned pale, when the trap sprang shut, when justice was served cold and legal and absolute. I think about how I could have been a victim, could have been another statistic, another elderly woman exploited by her own family. Instead, I became a fighter. My advice to anyone listening to this story, especially those of you in your later years with assets and family members who might be circling, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Document everything. Install cameras if you need to. Get cognitive evaluations to prove your competence. Build a team of trustworthy professionals, lawyers, accountants, doctors who have your back. And most importantly, understand that family status doesn't grant unlimited access or automatic trust. I loved my son. Part of me still does, in that deep, cellular way that mothers love the children they carried and raised. But I love myself more. I love my dignity, my autonomy, my right to decide what happens to the life Richard and I built together. And I was willing to fight for those things, even against my own blood. So yes, I sat in that courtroom and agreed to give Danny everything, knowing he'd never actually get a penny of it. I watched his lawyer turn pale as the truth unfolded. I watched justice demolish his schemes and protect my future, and I have no regrets about any of it, because at the end of the day, the greatest legacy I can leave isn't money. It's the example of a woman who refused to be a victim, who fought back with intelligence and strategy, who protected herself and warned others. That's worth more than all the real estate in Arizona. I'm 62 years old. I wake up every morning in my beautiful house, looking at Camelback Mountain, drinking coffee on my terrace. I make my own decisions. I control my own life. And my son, wherever he is, knows that he tried to take everything from me and failed spectacularly. That's my story. That's my truth. And if you're out there listening, dealing with something similar, know this. You're not alone, you're not helpless, and you can fight back. Get help, build your case, protect yourself, and never, ever feel guilty for defending your life against people who would take advantage of your love. Family is supposed to be about loyalty and care. When it becomes about exploitation and greed, you have every right to protect yourself, even if that means treating your own child like the threat they've become. I did it. You can too. And to Danny, if you're somehow hearing this, I still remember the good times, and I still mourn the relationship we could have had. But I'll never regret stopping you. You forced me to choose between being your victim and being my own protector. I chose myself. I'd make that choice again every single day for the rest of my life.